let us start today's class with the concept of economies of scale. Now, what is economies of scale? It refers to the effect upon the output that we witness when we change all the factors of production. Okay, and all the factors of production can be changed only in the long run. So, economics of scale or returns to scale exist in the long run. Okay, and it refers to the impact upon the output when all the factors of production can be changed. So the impact upon the output may be positive or else negative. Okay, so if the impact is positive, we call it economies of scale. If the impact upon the output is negative, then we call it diseconomies of scale. Okay, so first of all, we will try to study what are internal economies of scale and what are internal diseconomies of scale, and then we will move to the external. Now, what is internal economies of scale? It refers to the benefit that the firm enjoys when it expands its output. You know that small firms make a big industry. Okay, so firms are individual production unit of an industry. So whenever a firm increases its scale of production, means whenever it tries to increase its output, then it enjoys some benefit. Okay, now what are the benefits that it can enjoy? Now those benefits are basically known as internal economies of scale, and these benefits are enjoyed by the firm when it increases its output level. And what are the benefits? The benefits can be managerial economies, such as when you are starting or expanding your output level, initially you will have very good managerial efficiency. You will be able to manage your labor force and other resources well, because initially when you increase your production sector, or whenever you increase your output, the labor force that you are employing are new, and you are employing a very little amount of labor in the initial stage of production. So managing a less amount of labor force, or managing a small amount of labor force and fresh amount of labor force is very easy. Therefore we get a managerial economics or managerial benefit in this case. Secondly, we can get division of labor. Say you know that your labor force is small, so you can supervise these guys and find out in what job they are expert in. Okay, so in the production line, you will allot those specified persons in those sectors in which they are excelling or in which they are doing better. Okay, so first of all, when your labor force is small, you can identify their qualities and assign jobs to them based upon their qualities. Okay, so it is also giving you a benefit in form of increased output. Okay, whenever a person does the thing that he does best, he is more productive, and that's why your output will also increase. And the last one is use of byproduct. Whenever you are increasing your output, a firm can set up a byproduct firm. Say a wooden factory or a wooden furniture firm is focused upon creation of furnitures and selling of furniture. His main business is creation and selling of furniture. Okay, and in a wooden factory, you will obviously see that whenever they chopped off the wood, the fine grains of wood are the byproducts. So the byproducts of the wooden factories now can be used to make plywoods. Okay, so their main factory or the production unit belongs to or is concerned with production of furniture, and with the byproducts they can set up another unit in which they can produce plywood. So in this manner, what they are doing, they are using their waste in creation of another product, that is plywood. So what is happening? They are using their waste to expand their output. So byproducts, using up of byproducts also helps us in enjoying economies of scale. So these are basically the benefits that we enjoy when we increase our output level. Similarly, when we increase our output level, we enjoy certain benefits, and these benefits will help us to bring our average cost down. Okay, so our average cost, when we enjoy this kind of benefits, goes down and reaches a minimum point. Okay, however, after reaching this minimum point, if you still go on increasing your output level, your firm will start witnessing some losses or some kind of harms. Now what are the harms? If you go on increasing the output level way more than the optimum level, you will have to employ huge amount of labor, huge amount of other factors, and the labor mass will go on increasing, and what will happen, you will find it difficult to control this labor mass. You will find it difficult to supervise them. Okay, you won't be able to manage them efficiently. So what will happen? Your output will go on falling, or what will happen? Your cost of production will go up. Okay, so after the optimum output level, if you still go on increasing your output, your farms will face losses, or your farms will witness harm in form of management problem, because your labor mass will go on increasing, and you will find it difficult to manage them. Okay, and again, as the labor mass goes on increasing, they will do strikes, they will form labor union, they will do strikes to increase their wage rate. All these factors will disrupt your output production. Okay, and increase your cost of production. Okay, so in expanding a factory, there are good part, or there are certain merits and there are certain demerits. Okay, initially when you increase your output, you face certain merits or certain benefits which are known as internal economies of scale. However, if you go on increasing your output level or production unit more than the optimum level, then you will face the internal diseconomies of scale. Okay, and diseconomies of scale in form of management problems and other sorts of problems. So this was all about internal economies. Now we will discuss the concept of external economies of scale and external diseconomies of scale. Now what does this external economies of scale mean? Again, external economies of scale refers to certain kind of benefits. However, this benefit occurs when an industry tries to increase its or expands its mode of or scale of operations. Okay, so whenever a industry tries to increase its scale of operation, the industry or all the firms within the industry experience certain kind of benefit. Say these three dots are already established firm within an industry. Okay, and if the industry thinks about establishing more two firms, then what will happen? Due to the establishment of these two firms, the already established firms will enjoy certain kind of benefits. Those benefits will be known as external economies of scale. However, if the firm goes on establishing more and more, if the industry goes on establishing more and more production unit, that is a firm, it might lead to overcrowding, and it also might lead to certain kind of defects or harms for the already established firms. Okay, and at that time we will call it external diseconomies of scale. Okay, so here the economies and diseconomies of scale are enjoyed or are incurred by a firm not because it is increasing its own output, rather it is witnessing this kind of benefits or harm because of the establishment of another firm. So these benefits and harms are coming out from another firm. Okay, they themselves are not generating it, rather they are experiencing it because of some other firm. So this was the base concept of external economies of scale and external economies of scale and external diseconomies of scale. Now we will discuss a bit about what kind of external economies of scale may exist. Say, external economies of scale basically refers to the benefit when the industry increases its scale of operation, or whenever it goes on establishing more firms in a single geographical place. So there are 4 firms established nearby. Now due to the concentration of firms in this geographical area, there might be some benefits. Now what benefits? First is mobilization of economies of mobilizing capital. Now whenever you see that in a place there are 2 or 3 industries, then that place gets developed. Okay, आप दुर्गापुर देख लो या फिर जमशेदपुर देख लो, जहाँ पे स्टील इंडस्ट्रीज, टाटा के स्टील इंडस्ट्रीज और स्टील फर्म्स आर एस्टेब्लिश्ड. नाउ those places developed because of the establishment of this industry, otherwise वो जगह ignored ही रहता. तो due to the establishment of the firms, a particular geographical area develops, और उस एरिया में न्यू बैंक्स आते हैं, न्यू इन्वेस्टमेंट इंडस्ट्रीज आते हैं. ठीक है, तो क्या होता है, वो एरिया में फंड मोबिलाइजेशन और कैपिटल मोबिलाइजेशन बहुत स्मूथ हो जाता है. ठीक है, बहुत तरीके के बैंक आके एस्टेब्लिश होगा, बहुत तरीके के LIC ऑफिसर्स एस्टेब्लिश होगा, तो वो जगह पे फाइनेंशियल मार्केट और फाइनेंशियल लेन देन बहुत अच्छे तरीके से होगा. तो दिस इज व्हाट वी मीन बाय इकोनॉमीज ऑफ मोबिलाइजेशन ऑफ कैपिटल. ओके, वो क्यों हो रहा है? बिकॉज ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा फर्म अगर एक जगह पे कॉन्सेंट्रेट होंगे और ज़्यादा से ज़्यादा फर्म एक जगह पे एस्टेब्लिश होंगे, तब उस जगह पे नया बैंक्स आएगा, नया LIC ऑफिस आएगा, तो वहाँ पे क्या होगा, मोबिलाइजेशन ऑफ कैपिटल होगा. ठीक है. सेकेंड इज इकोनॉमिक्स ऑफ इंफॉर्मेशन शेयरिंग. नाउ सपोज दिस फर्म हैज डेवलप्ड ए न्यू काइंड ऑफ mode of production by using his research and development unit. ये फर्म ने क्या किया, कुछ एक अलग सा मोड ऑफ प्रोडक्शन जनरेट किया, न्यू टेक्निक जनरेट किया. ठीक है, तो दिस फर्म being a part of this industry can share the same information with this firm and with this firm. So इससे क्या हो रहा है, इंफॉर्मेशन शेयरिंग हो रहा है. आसपास के जो इंडस्ट्रीज है वहाँ पे द न्यू मोड ऑफ प्रोडक्शन कैन बी यूज्ड. अगर ये फर्म ने बाकी सबके साथ इंफॉर्मेशन शेयरिंग किया, और वो करेगा भी, बिकॉज वो एक इंडस्ट्री के अंदर है. ठीक है, एक ग्रुप के अंदर है. सो कंसंट्रेशन ऑफ फर्म्स लीड्स टू इंफॉर्मेशन शेयरिंग. ठीक है, सिर्फ मोड ऑफ प्रोडक्शन नहीं, कोई भी दूसरा इंफॉर्मेशन रिलेटिंग टू द मार्केट दे मे बी एबल टू शेयर बिकॉज ऑफ देयर कंसंट्रेशन. सेकेंड, thirdly, इकोनॉमीज ऑफ कंसंट्रेशन. इकोनॉमीज ऑफ कंसंट्रेशन क्या बोल रहा है कि अगर एक जगह पे इफ वी हैव मोर फर्म्स और इफ वी हैव a huge number of firms, then that place or that geographical area gets developed and the infrastructure of that area gets developed. So mobilization of inputs and output from that part becomes smooth. ठीक है, एक जगह पे जहाँ पे बहुत सारे इंडस्ट्रीज सिचुएटेड होगा या बहुत सारा फर्म सिचुएटेड होगा, वहाँ पे रोड अच्छे बनेंगे, एयरपोर्ट बनेंगे, देन रिवरवेज बनेंगे. तो वहाँ से क्या होगा, ट्रांसपोर्टेशन बहुत इजी हो जाएगा. आउटपुट लेने का आउटपुट को ट्रांसपोर्ट करने का कॉस्ट घट जाएगा, इनपुट को लाने का कॉस्ट घट जाएगा. सो वो क्यों हो रहा है, ये सब बेनिफिट्स क्यों मिल रहा है? बिकॉज हम लोग एक इंडस्ट्री का स्केल ऑफ ऑपरेशन बढ़ा रहे हैं, मीन्स एक इंडस्ट्री को एक्सपांड कर रहे हैं. तो जब भी हम लोग इंडस्ट्री को एक्सपांड करेंगे हम लोग को कुछ बेनिफिट मिलेगा इन फॉर्म ऑफ दिस थिंग्स. ओके, एंड दिस विल बी नोन एज external economies of scale. Then we have external diseconomies of scale. If the industries goes on expanding its mode of production or mode of operation way beyond the optimum level, then we start witnessing certain kind of harmful effects in form of rise in factor price, rise high pollution cost. Say you have established innumerable firms in a geographical area. Now establishing the firms will obviously generate output. However, this generation of output can also be linked with generation of pollution. जितना ज़्यादा इंडस्ट्री, जितना ज़्यादा फार्म्स होगा उतना ज़्यादा पोल्यूशन भी उस एरिया का ज़्यादा होगा. ठीक है, तो let us take an example of Durgapur or Jamshedpur. If you go to those cities, you might feel that the air is clean and everything is all right, but if you swipe the floors you will be able to see small black dusts. Okay, वो black dust क्या है? Those black dust are basically charcoals which have been emitted from the industries and the farms situated in that area. So due to the concentration of farms and concentration of production units, there will obviously be generation of certain kind of pollution in that area. Okay, so if you establish more farms there will be more pollution. If you establish less farms then you will be able to do away with the pollution thing. So establishment of more farms is basically harmful in form of pollution, and it can also be harmful in form of rise in factor price. And if factor price rises then your cost of production will also move up. यहाँ पे अगर we have 4 farms, now if there are 6 farms in this place, then all these farms will start demanding laborers. ठीक है, वो farm तो खुद से नहीं चलेगा, they will try to employ laborers, and as they go on employing laborers, what will happen? The demand for labor in that area will go up, and if the demand for labor in that area goes up, they will charge higher wage rate. ठीक है, scarcity of labor हो जाएगा उस एरिया में, बिकॉज 6 फर्म्स है, 6 को आदमी चाहिए, क्वालिफाइड आदमी चाहिए या फिर इफिशिएंट आदमी चाहिए, और उस जियोग्राफिकल एरिया में शायद उतना इफिशिएंट एंड क्वालिफाइड आदमी नहीं है. तो देयर विल बी स्केर्सिटी ऑफ the appropriate persons, or the scarcity of labor in that area. And whenever there is scarcity of resources, labor is a resource, so the price of those resources goes up. So factor price in those area might increase, and if the factor price goes on increasing, or if the factor price goes up, your cost of production will automatically go up. So इंडस्ट्री बढ़ाने और इंडस्ट्री एक्सपांड करने से भी we face certain kind of benefits and certain kind of losses. Okay, similarly एक फार्म भी अगर एक्सपांड करते हैं, if we try to expand the output of a farm, then also we find certain kind of benefits associated with it and certain kind of losses also, or harmful effects also. So internal economies of scale and internal diseconomies of scale arises when the firm itself tries to expand its output. Okay, यहाँ पे एक firm, एक single unit of an industry is trying to expand its output, and external economies of scale or external diseconomies of scale arises when an entire industry tries to expand its scale of production. Means एक पूरा group अपना जब activity बढ़ाने का सोचता है तब external diseconomics or external economics generate होता है. Okay, I hope this is clear. Now we will move to another topic relating to the modern theory of cost. I will teach you the long run average cost curve of the traditional theory and the modern theory together. Okay, so for now let us skip that part and let us directly move to the modern theory of cost. You have studied the concept of traditional theory of cost so far, okay, and according to the traditional theory, average variable cost, then average the marginal cost. This is the short run average variable cost, the short run marginal cost, all were U-shaped. Okay, they used to fall, reach a minimum and then increase. So when they used to fall, they were witnessing increasing returns to factor. Whenever they were at the minimum, they were witnessing constant returns to factor, and whenever they were increasing, they were witnessing decreasing returns to factor. Okay. However, this was the concept given by the traditional cost theories. The modern cost theory says that the shape of the average variable cost curve in the short run is not U-shaped. Rather, it is a saucer shape. Saucer means of this shape. Okay, it is basically a shape like an saucepan that we use in our kitchen. Okay, so it is a saucer shape, and the reason behind this shape is that initially it witnesses increasing returns to factor, and therefore the average cost goes down. Okay, this is the short run average variable cost. So initially it goes down due to increasing returns to factor. However, the modern theorists of cost hold the view that we do not experience constant returns to factor only at a point, rather we witness it over a amount of output or over a range of output. सिर्फ एक पॉइंट पे हम लोग CRF constant returns to factor enjoy नहीं करते, rather we enjoy it for a range of output. Okay, and then after that range gets depleted, or after that range is met, we then start witnessing decreasing returns to factor, and therefore our cost curve goes up. Okay, so this is the reason behind the modern theories social shape AVC. Okay, so if you are asked what will be your answer regarding this shape, that initially according to the modern theories the average variable cost curve witnesses increasing returns to factor, and therefore it falls, and then it witnesses CRS constant returns to factor for over a range of output, and therefore the middle part, okay, the middle part of the average variable cost curve is a straight line or a flat line parallel to x-axis, because it is witnessing constant returns to factor over here, CRF. Here it was witnessing increasing returns to factor, and here it is witnessing decreasing returns to factor. Okay. So, in case of modern theorists, the shape of average variable cost curve is a bit different. However, the shape of average fixed cost is same. They have not said anything about the average fixed cost. It has remained same. However, due to the change in the shape of average variable cost, the shape of marginal cost curve changes, and the shape of average cost curve also changes. I will show you how. Now, this is cost. We are measuring cost on the y-axis, and we are measuring output on the x-axis. Okay, and we know this is our average fixed cost. It is given by a rectangular hyperbola curve. Okay, now as I have said, my average variable cost curve is saucer shaped. Okay, so this is SABC, this is SSC. Okay, and now I have to find out average cost. Average cost was given by average fixed cost plus average variable cost. So if I add up these two curves, I will get average cost. So average cost will initially both the curve is falling till this point. So average cost curve will also fall till this point. Okay, sorry. So for this point, okay, and then after this point, what do we see? We see that average fixed cost is still falling and average variable cost has become constant. However, the falling AFC will outpower or overpower the constant AVC. So AC will keep on falling till this point. Okay, why AC is still falling? Because one of its component, that is AFC, is still falling, and the fall in AFC is overpowering the constant AVC. After this point has been reached, the AVC starts rising and it overpowers the falling AFC, and therefore AC starts rising after this point. Okay, so I hope the shape of AC is clear to you. So we have seen that due to the modern theories, the shape of average variable cost curve has changed. It has become a saucer shaped, and due to the change in the shape of AVC, the shape of AC has also changed. Previously it was U-shaped, now it is still U-shaped, but it is bit deformed. Okay, and now we will draw the marginal cost curve. The rule of drawing the marginal cost curve is that it should, whenever the marginal cost curve rises, it should rise or it should intersect the minimum point of AVC and AC. Okay, whenever MC rises, it should intersect AVC and AC at its minimum point. Okay, so first I will draw MC and I will start its rising part. However, according to the rule, it should intersect, the rising part of MC should intersect the minimum point of AVC. However, I don't have a minimum point of AVC. Rather, I have a range of minimum points. So what I will do, I will pull the rising part of MC till this point. Okay, and then it will coincide with this line only, because this entire range is the minimum point of AVC. So for satisfying the rule, MC merges with the minimum point or the range of minimum points of AVC, and over here it moves up. See, it is intersecting the minimum point of AC over here. So the rule is satisfied, it is intersecting the minimum point of AVC as well as the minimum point of AC. Okay, so this is how you will draw the modern cost curve. Okay, and in the next class, that will be the final class of this chapter, we will deal with long run average cost curve according to the traditional theories as well as the modern cost theories, how the shape of the long run average cost curve changes. Okay, so this will be all for today. Thank you.